There are stories that live in silence, buried beneath centuries of fear, whispered only in the shadows where no light dares to enter. This is one such story, a story of a man loved, honored, and followed by hundreds, yet condemned for the truth he never asked to carry. A man who became both a saint in the eyes of society and a sinner in the prison of his own skin. In a quiet English town, nestled between cobblestone streets and the cold mist of the countryside, there stood an old stone church. Its tall spire reached into the gray skies, bells echoing across the valley, calling the faithful to prayer. Inside that church lived Reverend Samuel Whitmore. To the villagers, Samuel was not just a priest. He was the embodiment of devotion, kindness, and moral strength. When he walked through the marketplace, children would run to greet him. Shopkeepers would smile, offering him bread without charge. Families invited him to their tables, proud just to share a meal with the man they called Father. And every Sunday, when the bells rang and the church pews filled, Reverend Samuel's sermons carried such passion, such clarity, that people often left with tears in their eyes. They believed he was chosen. They believed he was the kind of man who could do no wrong. But Reverend Samuel lived with a truth he could not confess. At night, when the candles burned low and the hymns of the day faded into silence, he stared into the mirror and saw a stranger. A man who wanted to be free, but could not. His heart never longed for women. His heart never beat in the way his parish expected. His love, his secret, his truest self was forbidden. He was a gay man living inside the robes of a priest. And in a world where such a truth was considered sin, he wore his mask tighter than any other. Every sermon was a battle against himself. Every smile he gave was shadowed by the fear that one wrong word, one wrong look, could destroy him forever. He prayed endlessly, whispering into the darkness, "God, why me? Why did you place this weight inside me only to forbid me from lifting it? Am I broken? Or is the world broken for refusing to see me as yours?" But the walls gave him no answer. For years he carried the silence like a stone. But stones crack, and secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of rising to the surface. It began one late evening after a sermon. The congregation had left, leaving only the flicker of candles dancing across the wooden pews. One young man remained, Thomas, a choir singer with kind eyes and an unshaken spirit. Thomas lingered, hesitant, then asked softly, "Father, do you ever feel lonely?" The question pierced Samuel's heart. For a moment he forgot the mask. His voice, trembling, escaped him. "Loneliness isn't about being alone, my child. It's about being unseen." Thomas looked at him, puzzled, sensing the weight behind those words. And Samuel realized he had spoken too much. His chest tightened. He dismissed Thomas quickly, but the damage was done. Words, once spoken, have wings. The first whispers came quietly. A few churchgoers noticed the priest's reluctance to marry, his distance from women, the way his gaze lingered too long among the men. "Isn't it strange," they murmured, "that he is nearly 40 and has never courted a woman? He lives so alone, so private. Perhaps his purity is not holiness, but something else." Whispers grew into suspicion. Suspicion became rumor. And in a small town, rumor spreads like wildfire. Samuel felt the shift. The smiles of the villagers grew colder. Invitations to supper grew rare. Some parishioners avoided shaking his hand. Mothers pulled their children back when he leaned too close. The church pews were still full, but the eyes that watched him now carried daggers. And yet he carried on. He stood at the pulpit, voice steady, words of love pouring from his lips, even as inside he crumbled. He prayed that if he preached harder, served better, the doubts would fade. But he knew storms do not fade. They only grow. The night the storm arrived began with nothing more than silence. Samuel had finished his prayers and was walking home through the empty streets. The mist hung low, curling between the stones like restless spirits. From the corners of the tavern came hushed voices. Laughter cut short when he passed. He felt their eyes. He felt the judgment hanging in the air. The next Sunday he noticed the change. The church pews were filled, yes, but there was no warmth in the eyes staring back at him. Where once he saw admiration, now there was doubt, suspicion, even disgust. Every word he spoke seemed to echo strangely, as though the walls themselves questioned him. When he blessed a child, the mother pulled the boy away. When he greeted old friends, they lowered their eyes. That evening, Thomas came to him again. His face was pale. "Father," he whispered, "there are things being said about you, things I don't believe, but the people, they are turning." Samuel's heart sank. He asked, almost trembling, "What are they saying?" Thomas hesitated, then lowered his voice. "They say you are unnatural. They say your purity is a mask." The words cut like knives. Samuel could hardly breathe. "And you?" he asked. "Do you believe them?" Thomas's eyes filled with tears. "I believe you are a good man, but I also believe the truth cannot hide forever." Samuel turned away, hiding the storm in his chest. He wanted to scream, to confess, to fall into someone's arms and say, "Yes, this is who I am. This is the truth." But he knew that truth would cost him everything. Still, the whispers grew louder. One evening, as Samuel left the church, a group of men cornered him near the old cemetery gates. Their faces were lit by lanterns, twisted with anger. "Father Whitmore," one spat, "we know what you are." Samuel's voice was calm, but his hands shook. "I am what I have always been, a servant of God." "Don't lie," another barked. "You speak of purity but live in sin. You deceive us, our wives, our children. You shame the church." Samuel's lips trembled. He wanted to argue, but his voice caught in his throat. And silence, in that moment, was as good as confession. The men sneered. "You will pay for this deceit." Word spread through the town like lightning. By the next morning, it was no longer whispers. It was shouts, curses, pointed fingers. People who once kissed his hand now spat at his feet. Mothers clutched their children tighter when he passed. Shopkeepers turned him away. In the church, where once hundreds prayed with him, half the pews stood empty. And those who remained watched with eyes full of suspicion, waiting for a slip, a sign, anything that confirmed what they now believed. Their holy priest was a fraud. The bishop was called from the neighboring parish. He sat Samuel down in the candlelit rectory, face stern, voice heavy. "Samuel, the accusations against you are grave. Do you deny them?" Samuel's throat was dry. He could lie. He could say the words they wanted, play the part they needed. But in that moment, something inside him broke. He whispered, barely audible, "I cannot deny who I am." The bishop's eyes widened with disgust. "Then you leave me no choice." From that day, Samuel was no longer their shepherd. He was their wolf. And the town, united in hatred, prepared to hunt. It began with insults shouted in the streets, then stones thrown at his door, windows shattered in the night, and then, the night of the torment. He was dragged from his bed, rough hands clutching his arms, pulling him through the cobblestones while the town gathered in the square. Faces he had once blessed now twisted with rage. Some carried sticks, others stones. They shouted words he had preached himself, words of morality, purity, holiness now turned into weapons. They struck him. Fists, boots, stones. He fell to the ground, blood pooling at his lips, ribs cracking under the weight of their fury. Yet through it all, he did not cry for mercy. He looked upward, through the smoke of torches, into the black sky, and whispered to the heavens, "They can break my body, but not my truth." The crowd roared. The bishop stepped forward and pronounced the sentence. "You are no longer welcome in this town. You are cast out, banished in shame. Leave before dawn or face death." Samuel lay broken on the stones, but his spirit, though bruised, still flickered like a stubborn flame. He knew they could exile him. They could destroy his reputation. But before he left, he would leave behind something that could not be erased. That night, after the crowd dispersed and the torches faded into the mist, Samuel was left bruised, bleeding, but alive. He dragged himself back into the rectory one last time. The wooden floorboards groaned beneath his weight. His hands shook as he lit a single candle. He knew he had only hours before the guards forced him out of the town forever. But he also knew this. His silence had destroyed him, and he would not leave in silence again. With trembling fingers, he reached for a sheet of parchment. Ink spilled onto the table as he dipped the quill. His body weak, his face swollen, yet his mind clear. And he began to write. Not for the bishop, not for the town, not for those who had cast the stones. His message was for the ones hiding now in shadows. Boys, girls, men, and women, hearts beating with truths they dared not speak. His words flowed, a final sermon not from the pulpit but from the depths of his soul. To the ones who live in silence, I see you. To the ones who tremble in fear of discovery, I know you. The world may tell you that your truth is a sin. They may drag you into the square and call you unholy. They may strip you of your dignity and cast you out. But hear me, you are not broken. You are not wrong. You are not alone. The love inside you is not a curse. It is a flame, and though they may try to snuff it out, it will burn again, brighter than before. His hand shook violently as blood dripped onto the page, but he continued. They can exile me from this town. They can break my bones. They can silence my voice. But they cannot erase what I am. And neither can they erase you. One day when you are ready, stand tall. Do not let fear write your story. Let truth write it. And when you do, know that I believed in you, even when no one else did. He signed the letter simply, Samuel Whitmore, servant of truth. Before dawn, he folded the parchment and placed it beneath the great Bible on the altar, knowing someone would find it, someone who needed it. Then, with nothing but the clothes on his back, he walked out of the rectory for the last time. The bells rang that morning, but for the first time in decades, he was not there to ring them. The town awoke to an empty church, a vacant pulpit. And though many felt triumphant, secure in their victory, their children and their children's children would whisper a different story, because the letter was found. At first, it was hidden, passed quietly between trembling hands, read in hushed voices by candlelight. But slowly it spread. Young men who thought themselves cursed wept as they read words that felt like their own hearts. Young women who feared they would never be accepted held the letter to their chests, whispering, I am not broken. And though Samuel was gone, vanished beyond the fog of the countryside, never seen in the town again, his voice lived on. Not in sermons, not in churches, but in secret hearts that dared, one by one, to rise. The bishop declared him damned. The villagers called him shameful. But to the ones who needed him most, he became something far greater than holy. He became hope. Years later, when a new generation of voices finally spoke openly, they remembered him. The man cast out in disgrace. The man tortured and exiled. The man who whispered to the heavens as stones rained down upon him, They can break my body, but not my truth. He had not lost. Society had won a battle, yes, but history belonged to him. And now, his story belongs to you. So as you listen, ask yourself, whose side are you on? The side of fear or the side of truth? The side of hatred or the side of love? Because history has shown us again and again. Towns crumble, laws change, but courage is eternal. If this story moved you, if it touched even a corner of your heart, then do not let it fade. Share it, speak it, and subscribe to this channel because silence allows cruelty to grow. But together, by telling these stories, we can break the silence. Samuel Whitmore was cast out of his town. But here, in your ears, in your heart, in your voice, he lives again.